As long as blacks continue to live with the whites, they constitute a threat to the national life. Family life may also collapse, and the increase of mixed breed bastards may someday challenge the supremacy of the white man. Only education is capable of saving our societies from possible collapse, whether violent or gradual. If all mankind were to disappear, the world would regenerate back to the rich state of equilibrium that existed 10,000 years ago. If insects were to vanish, the environment would collapse into chaos. The nitrogen in our DNA, the calcium in our teeth, the iron in our blood, the carbon in our apple pies were made in the interiors of collapsing stars. We are made of star stuff. True teachers are those who use themselves as bridges over which they invite their students to cross. Then, having facilitated their crossing, joyfully collapse, encouraging them to create their own. Of the 22 civilizations that have appeared in history, 19 of them collapsed when they reached the moral state the United States is in now. You could remove the powerful preaching from our church, and it would still continue. You could remove the administration of pastoral care through the cell group system, and the church would still continue. But if you remove the prayer life of our church, it would collapse. If Christ did not want to dismiss the Jews without food in the desert for fear that they would collapse on the way, it was to teach us that it is dangerous to try to get to heaven without the bread of heaven. So I walked back to my room and collapsed on the bottom bunk, thinking that if people were rain, I was drizzle and she was a hurricane. If honesty were suddenly introduced into American life, the whole system would collapse. You know, we all have our inner demons. For one, I can't speak for you, but I'm on the verge of moral collapse at any time. It can happen by the end of the show. The collapse of Enron was devastating to tens of thousands of people and shook the public's confidence in corporate America. If you're overfishing at the top of the food chain and acidifying the ocean at the bottom, you're creating a squeeze that could conceivably collapse the whole system. So, South Korean ability is very much limited to handle North Korean. So we don't want to see an immediate collapse of the North Korea regime. The New Deal is plainly an attempt to achieve a working socialism and avert a social collapse in America. It is extraordinarily parallel to the successive policies and plans of the Russian experiment. Americans shirk the word socialism, but what else can one call it? Grace cannot prevail until our lifelong certainty that someone is keeping score has run out of steam and collapsed. What if a small group of world leaders were to conclude that the principal risk to the earth comes from the actions of the rich countries? In order to save the planet, the group decides, isn't the only hope for the planet that the industrialized civilizations collapse? Isn't it our responsibility to bring that about? The banking collapse was caused more than anything by bad government policy and the total failure of bad regulation, rather than by greed. That many-faceted thing called love succeeds in building bridges from the loneliness on this shore to the loneliness on the other one. These bridges can be of great beauty, but they are rarely built for eternity, and frequently they cannot tolerate too heavy a burden without collapsing. When the common soldiers are too strong and their officers too weak, the result is insubordination. When the officers are too strong and the common soldiers too weak, the result is collapse. The collapse of Enron and the subsequent collapse of Arthur Andersen were tremendous tragedies. But as I stated at the time of my indictment on July 8, 2004, failure does not equate to a crime. But I never get attracted to fans, 'cause the eager beaver could be the collapse of a dam.